Sonya Mallard from the Harriette T. and Harriette V. Moore Cultural Center and Museum up in Mims, Florida.
Correct.
How did you get to that? How did you find that the center? First of all, are you a Brevard native or?
No, I'm a transplant. I'm from
Me
New
too.
York City, born and raised. And we came down to take care of my husband's grandmother, who was 95 at the time. So we sold our house, and I wanted to teach my children, this is what you do for family.
Yes, it is.
And so she lived till she was 99, and then we had a decision to make. But the kids already got on a plane and went back to New York because it was a cultural shock for us. But we stayed, and I really love it now. I love the small town feel, and I just like knowing people and learning people and new things, like with you guys.
Yeah. So you live in Mims?
I live in Titusville.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have a long commute to go up to the center. How did you find that magnificent place?
I tell you, it was one of life happening moments. I was just finishing chemo. I was just walking around, looking around for something to do. And one day I bumped into it, and I found out it was this hidden gem right on Freedom Avenue. And I was like, wow, this is a beautiful building, a beautiful land, a beautiful park. And I just kept coming here, learning and meeting everybody. And I kept thinking, boy, if I didn't know it was here, I know nobody else knows it's here. So I just started hanging out and learning all I could about the Moors.
Now, why don't you tell me a little bit about who Harry and Harriette were? I love the fact that they were a married couple, right?
Correct.
I love the fact that they have very similar names. Harry and Harriette. I have a guardian angel named Harriette.
Really?
I do.
Wow.
But why don't you tell me about the Moores, Mr. and Mrs. Moore?
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Moore were a couple, and they met at a card game. And actually, they were educators, civil rights activists. He was a principal, but they were playing a card game in Mims, Florida. And they said, as the story tells, Harriette walked in and he looked up, and it was like love at first sight, right? And she was 3 years older than him, and she was taller than him. And some might say a cougar, but she was just a woman who adored her husband. And they hid their marriage from their parents for 6 months.
Because of their age difference?
I never knew why they hid the marriage, but they hid the marriage, and probably.
Now, what time frame was this? When
this is the 1940s.
40s,
the 1940s, in that era, the Jim Crow era, actually.
Right.
And and they just became a awesome couple. And I wanted to know, where did they get the land from? So they built a home on 1 acre of land next to Harriette's mother. And Harriette's mother inherited the land. And Harry built the house right here on Freedom Avenue.
Now, this was not a big house at the time, was it?
Actually, for that time period, it really was.
Was it?
It was a shotgun style home, and we have a replica of the home. And really, if you come into that house, you would say, for that time period, I mean, it was huge. They had indoor plumbing. They had a large kitchen, a living room, 3 bedrooms actually, and a back porch where they did their laundry and everything. So it was really
because that was the style.
That was the style of the home at that time. Correct.
My grandmother, I can remember, I grew up in the 60s. I was born in the mid 50s. And I can remember she had a shotgun house. And I remember the front porch with the rocking chairs and the back porch with the washing machine. And, it's just what you're telling me sounds just like my grandmother's house.
Right. They had the wood burning stove with the ice box. Remember the ice box?
Well, by the time I came along, they actually had a refrigerator.
Oh, okay.
My mother grew up in that house, and she has told us stories about the ice box.
Wow.
So I think my mother probably would have been a little younger than the Moores had been. She was born in 27. What year were they born in? Do you remember?
They were born in 1919.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were actually just a little bit younger than my grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now they were civil rights activists, weren't they?
Yeah, I just think it's so wonderful that we have history right here in our own backyard in Central Florida. And when you think about our history, it was a time when we was living under the Jim Crow laws, separate but equal. Children, the blacks went to the colored school, the whites went to the white school. And during that time, everything was separate but equal. But Harry Moore, his father died when he was 9 years old, and his mother sent him to go live with his aunts. And they were educated professionals. One was a nurse, 2 teachers, and one with a PhD. And they became the son that they never had. And he just exposed himself to so much. And he fell in love with learning. So he went all the way to Suwannee County and enrolled in the high school program of Florida Memorial College, which originally was in Live Oak, and then in St. Augustine, and now in Miami. But you got to remember during this time, like 1931, the Florida 67 counties, they didn't have a public Black high school. That's why every historically Black college also had a high school. And if Black families wanted to send their children to receive a high school education, they had to send them out of town. So Harry T. Moore excelled, and he studied Latin and Greek and French and required Bible courses. Wow. But he was so smart that they called him Doc,
Oh, nice.
He was an award-winning debater. He even played on a baseball team. Now, he didn't possess great physical skills, but he graduated in May 1925 at the age of 19 with a normal degree. And he started teaching at the Cocoa Colored School, and that's when he met Harriet.
While they were playing cards.
Playing cards.
I love it.
That? Yeah.
Well, I can remember 1969 in my hometown was the year that we integrated the schools.
Wow.
And, it seems like that's so recent. And you would think, I don't know, I just don't understand the racial differences and the separation, but I was taught not to.
Right. But you know what blows my mind so much? Again, me being born and raised in New York, it was a melting pot, right?
Exactly.
So we just don't like people because we don't like people. It was really nothing about the color of your skin. However, what I find so interesting here is that when I talk to like local people down here, Titusville High School wasn't integrated until 1971.
No way.
Yeah. And a lot of people think this was so long ago. If you speak to someone, grandmother or great grandmother or aunt, it really wasn't. We're talking about 70 years ago. And I have a guy that worked with us, and he retired now, but he came back and helped us out. He said that when he grew up, he didn't see a Black person until he went to high school. And I just found that like so amazing to me. High school. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, that seems crazy. I guess part of it was because of where I grew up in the South, in South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And
what part?
Walterboro.
I had an aunt that lived there.
No
so
way.
I know where that was at. I did. I had an aunt that lived in Walterboro. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I'm from.
Wow. Okay.
And we went to a Catholic church. So it didn't matter what color your skin was or what language you spoke. Mm-hmm. You were welcome. And so I grew up going to Sunday school with people of all colors and all denominations, it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was no big deal. And I'll never forget that one of my very, very best friends, her name was Anna. And I thought it was so cool because it was Anna, not Anna, she had a voice like an angel.
Wow.
And she was in my class. We both had last names that began with W. Hers was White, mine was Worden. And so our homeroom was in the same class. And we took a lot of the same high school classes. So she was one of my best friends. I never saw a color. I never saw anything other than a beautiful human who treated me nicely. She was kind to me and I was kind to her.
Right.
And my mother always taught us it's not what color your skin is or what kind of shoes you wear or where you get your clothing or, whether you've got the latest style. It's how you make someone feel.
How you make them feel. Yeah.
So I guess Harriette made Harry feel good enough to marry her.
Oh yeah, they were married for 25 years. Yes,
That's amazing. Now, he was a vital part of the NAACP, if I remember.
Correct. So he was instrumental in opening up the NAACP branches throughout the state of Florida. So he would travel the back roads, sometimes not even being able to go to the bathroom, get something to eat. He would have to travel the back roads because, I'm sure he would have probably got hurt or lynched at that time for the activity and the civic engagement that he was doing. But he felt that, he fought for three things, right? Equal pay for Black teachers. They took the lawsuit to Brevard Public Schools and they lost. However, the lawyer was Thurgood Marshall. And the second thing he did, he taught his students how to cast ballots. He understood the power of the vote. Harry T. Moore got Black men and women motivated and inspired and encouraged to vote at a time that they were scared, right? That's when they was using those tactics at the poll. They had a polling tax. They had to take a literacy test and all sorts of things. So a lot of people couldn't vote. And he was instrumental in getting over 116,000 Blacks registered to vote. They said, who is this Negro? He's too big for his britches. And you thought that wasn't enough, he investigated every lynching that took place in the state of Florida. Come on, lynching in the state of Florida? That was huge.
Yeah. Florida's a big state, so if he's investigating every one, he was probably traveling a lot.
Yeah.
But because back then, what year did they pass away? When
Harry T. Moore?
Yeah.
1951.
51. So that was before I was born. Mm-hmm. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. If you had a telephone, I can remember when I was about 10, 8 or 9, 10, around in that. Mm-hmm. My family got our first phone and it was a party line. Mm-hmm. And, I had to pick up the phone. Mrs. Jones, would you please let me call my mother at work?
Right.
So it was interesting. So I know, some of the challenges that they had to deal with, and it always amazes me when my mother would tell me stories from her childhood, how news got around so fast. And, for him to be investigating all of these lynchings, and it's unfortunate that there were so many.
Well, listen, a few facts that may surprise you. The disturbing truth is that for decades, Florida was a haven for lynchings, which flies in the face of our image as a tourist paradise. From 1900 to 1930, Florida had the highest rate of lynchings in the South.
You know why?
That rope was hung from a tree because of the Jim Crow era. During that time, Florida want to be known as a tourist state. I really thought it would have been Mississippi, Alabama, but Florida had 4.5 lynchings to every 10,000 Blacks. So from 1921 to 1946, Florida had 61 lynchings, twice as many as Alabama. And Harry T. Moore in 1941, he challenged every lynching that occurred in Florida. So he learned quickly that protest letters to the governor, it just wasn't enough. So he believed in the power of the pen, the power of the typewriter, getting the word out. And he just threw himself into every case directly. So he had a target on his back.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But, when you are standing on the side of what's right, you don't really care about those targets.
No.
He was on a mission, and he knew, he was like the Blues Brothers. He was on a mission from God, but he knew that what he was doing, somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
And you cannot sit back and wait for the other person to do the right thing.
Exactly.
If you know what's right, you have to be the one to stand up and do it. And, as I understand, Harriet was right there at his side, encouraging him and supporting him through all of the things that he was doing.
Yes. You know, she adored her husband. Any civic engagement, I'm sure he had to discuss with her because they had two girls, right?
Yeah.
And you know, he was protecting his family, and she stood by his side. She was very much involved in every activity that he was involved in as well. Yeah.
Now, where were their children, their daughters, at the time of the bombing that happened?
So good question. Now, this was December 25th, 1951, Christmas, right? So
Christmas
they
Day.
celebrated, yeah, Christmas pretty much like people who celebrate Christmas. Good food. They went over to their family's house. The only exception is that they wasn't going to open up their presents that day because their baby girl, Evangeline, was coming home on a train the next day. So they went across Old Dixie Highway to East Mims to their family house, and they ate and they laughed. His mother was visiting from Jacksonville. His oldest daughter was there, and then they came back home. Let me tell you something. Something evil was lurking in the groves, and it was the KKK. How do I know? From the FBI reports. They were smoking cigarette after cigarette, and this was nothing but orange groves, right?
Yeah.
And when they came back in their 1947 Ford Model A car, they had no idea they were in the groves. Somebody gave the layout to Harry T. Moore's house. They knew where the bathroom was at. They knew where the kitchen was at. They even knew what side of the bed he slept on. Now, you may sleep in the middle of your bed, and I may sleep on the right side, and someone else may sleep on the left, but Harry T. Moore slept on the right side of his bed. And let me tell you something. When he came home, remember their 25th wedding anniversary, so he surprised her and danced a little bit, ate some cake, and they sat up and talked. His mother, who was visiting from Jacksonville, said, "Harry, I need to speak with you." And she was saying to him, "You know, you got a target on your back. You're going to get yourself killed." And he paraphrased and just said, "Ma, what's the price of freedom, right?" And they all went to bed that night about 10:20 p.m. The Klansmen crawled under the house in that crawl space.
Right. And
like
it's not a big space.
Nope, just about like that.
Yeah.
And they lit the dynamite. Boom! They said that was the loudest bomb heard around the world. People from as far as Scotchmore came running, Titusville. They thought NASA blew up. They said, Professor Moore's house, Professor Moore's house. That dynamite was so explosive that it took Harry and Harriet's body, lifted into the ceiling, and caved into the ground. Can I tell you something?
They wanted to make sure he was dead.
And there wasn't a hospital here in Brevard County that would see a Black man. They had to dig Harry and Harriet out the crevices, pick up their limp bodies, and they had to put him in his own car. And they drove all the way down Highway 46 to the city of Sanford. Come on now. You know they had the pedal to the metal. That car probably didn't go more than 35, 40 miles an hour. By the time they got there, Harriet was frantic. Doctor, do something. My husband. Dr. Starks was waiting with a needle this big and gave Harry a needle on his side. He was pretty much dead on arrival. Harriet was bleeding internally. Now remember, full circle, that was December 25th, 1951. The next day, all aboard Titusville. That train came into the tracks. Evangeline picked up her bags. She was coming home to a place of love, a place of safety. She had
no idea what had happened the night before.
No cell phone, no idea, no beeper like these kids have, no idea. She picked up her luggage, got off the train, and she was looking for her parents, and she didn't see them. And all of a sudden she saw her aunt and her uncle, so she just assumed her parents were busy. She picked up her luggage, followed her uncle to the car. Nobody said anything. They got inside the car. Nobody said anything.
They didn't know how. How do you tell your daughter, your niece, something like this?
Come on. Finally, the uncle started driving the car. He turned around and said, "Evangeline, I might as well tell you. They bombed your house, they killed your daddy, and now we're going to the hospital to see your mother." Can you just imagine that? You coming
the day
home
after Christmas
to a place of love and safety and warmth and comfort. And now your whole world was blown up because of the color of your skin.
That is so unfair.
Isn't that crazy? And remember, this is still a Jim Crow era. They get to the hospital. Harriette says to the doctor, "Doctor, may I please speak to my 2 girls alone?" Make it quick. Evangeline and Rosalie sit on the bottom of her bed, and I'm going to paraphrase what Evangeline shared with us, but she passed away 5 years ago. And she said that her mother said to them, "We raised you to be good citizens. We taught you values, morals, and respect. We don't want you to hate nobody for the color of their skin."
God
Can you
bless
just
her.
imagine that? She knew she was dying. The love of her life just died. Her house got blown up to bits and pieces, but she knew those were going to be the last words to her girls.
And
guess
she
what
knew
else?
who had done this to her.
I'm sure, or had a great idea
Yeah.
of who. Well, again, the Jim Crow era, the doctor said, "You cannot go to your husband's funeral." She signed herself out of the hospital and she went to her husband's funeral. But do you know that there wasn't a florist here in Brevard County that would send flowers to a Black man's funeral? Ask me where the flowers came from. I'm so glad you asked.
You're such a good storyteller. I love this.
They shipped the flowers from Miami all the way to this beautiful city called Mims for the flowers. Is that crazy? And it just behooves me that even in death, people can hate you that much. And guess what? They're buried right here on Old Dixie Highway at our historic cemetery called LaGrange Cemetery.
Yes.
And it's still segregated today. The Blacks are on the left and the whites are on the right. Isn't that crazy?
That is nuts. There's a cemetery like that in my hometown too. That is segregated.
Yeah. So Harry T. Moore had the audacity to do the unthinkable for a Black man to do at a time when they were scared. You know, people were scared to get lynched. They were scared for their lives. They were just scared. And you know, Harriet died 9 days later.
I remember reading that, yes.
Yeah. So this is what I like to say to everyone. They were the only husband and wife ever killed in the civil rights struggle. 3 great tragedies. Number 1, that they were murdered. Number 2, that the murders just never been solved, right? And number 3, perhaps the most tragic, that they are basically unknown. Their sacrifice was forgotten. They were left out of the history books and out of the hearts and minds of most decent human beings like you and me. I believe if Harry Moore had been killed 3 years later, let's just say 1954, after the Brown decision, he would be in every history book and everyone would have known his name. Harry T. Moore definitely had the audacity to do the unthinkable. Before the country was paying attention, before there was a civil rights movement, before the TV cameras, and the children in Birmingham and New York City was being sprayed with the fire hose by the police. But you know, I'm pleased to tell you today to let you know that his dying wasn't in vain. Out of the ashes and the ruins of the dynamite, we have a beautiful 12-acre memorial park and museum on the property of his original home site. And I'm excited to say that we're a polling site and we have on hand the actual registration book that shows their actual signatures that they signed in 1936.
Oh, nice.
Lori Scott presented it to us 1 February, about a couple of years ago. We house a museum, a 100-seat conference center, a gift shop, and a small reference library. Now, I'm gonna be honest, we're waiting anxiously to hear if President Biden will accept the nomination from Congressman Charlie Crist for the highest civilian honor, the Medal of Freedom.
Oh, definitely. I think he
needs to do it.
I hope he does.
I did too.
You know what you didn't mention, that's one of my favorite parts about the center is the gazebo. I think it is just one of the most beautiful outdoor areas.
Yes.
Because there's like a little water feature there too.
Yes. So let me tell you how that came about. The Harry T. Moore Cultural Complex Board of Directors, Mr. William Gary is our president, and they was responsible for securing funding to make major physical enhancement to the park. So they did the construction of the Moore family replica house. That's our twin reflecting pools with a fountain. The Walk of Freedom paver walkway. We call it the Civil Rights Trail now. So when you walk around the trail, you have these kiosks with civil rights history to read in different sections. That's really great. Hopefully we'll add some benches soon for people who can't take the whole walk. We have a beautiful gazebo that we've been using for weddings and jazz concerts and 5K race walks. And we also have a pavilion that seats 125 people with an inside kitchen. So that's been like a place for receptions and just different family reunions. Yeah, we have a beautiful place out here. Beautiful.
Now, I want to say this is just a vague memory in my head, and I'm sure that COVID has changed so many different things. But wasn't this center a kind of a hot spot for like fourth grade students to come on field trips for a while?
So now what happened was, after 70 years of the Moors being unjustly fired, the Brevard Public Schools gave a proclamation, and they just redone the unjust firing of the Moors. So they gave a proclamation, and in that they write in the school curriculum. And now, yes, the fourth graders, the eighth graders, 9th, 10th. But right now we have over 250 students coming out to the center for field trips to learn about that piece of history.
That's so good.
Yeah. And it's great to see those buses rolling on down the street. One of the neighbors said, "What's going on? There's so many school buses and tour buses coming." I said, "The word is getting out." I said, "You live on a great part of Mims, right here next to the museum." So it's exciting right now. It's very exciting.
You know, I told my children that it was a shame that I didn't, that they weren't born in Florida, because I would have loved to have been a homeschooler and take my children to all these historical places. There was nothing like that where I grew up. We were in such a rural area. There's no major cultural centers. There's a library, and now, many years later, there are other things. But Florida has such a rich historical legacy that it's so important for children to learn these things. And
it really is.
And when they go to these museums, they can see with their eyes what things looked like and how people interacted during that time. It's important to learn.
Correct. And when they go into the replica home, the board did a great job in getting mannequins made of the Moors. So a lot of them, I always warn them before they go in the house that we have mannequins. They're not real people, but they could see the time period of how they were dressed and what they did. We have Mr. Moore sitting at the table with a pen in his hand.
Now, your board, I was looking at pictures of your board members. They're some upstanding people in the neighborhood or the community.
Yes, they are.
You've got what, 10 people on your board, I think.
Correct. We lost some along the way. But I know Mr. William Gary's our president. Ms. Gloria Bartley is our secretary. We have our treasurer, Mr. Loris Abraham, Ms. Joyce Aaron, Mr. Art Edwards, Mr. Fisher. So not Mr. Fisher. Can't think of his last name. I'm sorry. But it's we have an impressive board, and they
probably
really
talking about Mr. Fletcher.
Fletcher, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, John Fletcher. Yes, that's what I want to say. So they work hard to, do as much as they can.
It's not an easy thing to run a nonprofit. It's not a hard thing, but it's a time consuming. And I understand that because of bUneke. But I would imagine running something with you said 12 acres?
Correct.
That's a lot of land.
Yes.
Where did the property come from?
Well, they bought it back from the county. So it's county run now.
Is this through the Board of Recreation Department?
We were under Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation, yes. Okay.
My director is Mary Ellen Dunner, and Mr. Jeff Davis oversees the North Area Parks and Recreation operation.
Now, what is it that you do, Sonya?
Okay, good question. So, I oversee the daily operations of the museum. And what I do love is that even my immediate supervisor, Mr. Terry Parks, they allow me to be creative and innovative. So my staff is Miss Cassandra Wright, and we have like some part-time workers that help us out. Miss Keisha Williams, Miss Aisha Hosey was helping us. So what we do is brainstorm, and we try to come up with ideas and ways to have new events, to have new hands-on experience for the kids. Because remember, you can come to a museum for so long, but what you're really coming for is not just the experience, but to see new things at the museum, right? New things to learn, new things to touch, new things to feel. So they allow me to be as creative and innovative. So for instance, we started the diversity training here. We trained over 125 Walmart executives. I go to Starbucks a lot. They came out. I was able to train their executives, about 8 of them throughout the state of Florida. We go to schools and speak at the schools for the schools who can't come to us. And Mims Elementary School, there was a time that there was a problem, and we came in and we did it under the legacy of the Moors and just changed it around, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they allow us to be really creative, and I love it. I love it because every day is a new day. Like today, while I'm speaking to you, we have 2 homeschools that's here. So we have about 60 children walking around and learning and watching a film. And when we have the young kids, we show animated films for them, so it won't be too heavy, you know, because they don't know what Lincoln or anything like that, but they know what freedom is. So yeah. And then, you know, we talk to the media. It's a lot. It's really a lot, but it's good, right? It's good work. It's just great. We have an antique car show, and that's a whole nother.
Is that a regular thing?
An annual antique car show, and that's because of Mr. Moore's 1947 Ford Model A car. And the first time we had it, I was like a kid in a candy store. They were coming down Freedom Avenue. I was just videotaping, and I mean, just to see these old cars from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, and I didn't realize that's a whole nother genre of people. It's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And, now I made some great friends with some great different. I joined every car club I think it is in Brevard County.
When is your car show?
It's always, well, this year we're still working on it because of COVID. Remember, last year was COVID as well, but the year before that we had like about, I would say 78 cars. Just gorgeous. And we always give out trophies, and we always give out free pizza. And so then I had some of the guys say, you can make this a fundraiser. And we gave everyone a certificate inside a frame. And it was like, this is the best car show. We never get anything. We just want that trophy. So it's really, really great. We always have it around July.
Okay.
Not too hot, not too cold, that sort of thing. So they sit out in the back under the trees. And I didn't realize they bring their picnic baskets and their wives or girlfriends or friends, and they all know each other. They sit out and talk, and it's just really nice.
Now, car people are a special breed.
They really are.
Now, is this open to what models are open? Is it open to? So far, we just been focusing on the old classics, right? From 1900 and up. So we've been getting some great cars. You name it, it's been here. So as long as they're antiques or whatever? Oh, yeah. And classic, right. So is there something that you want to close the show out with, and like a message to our viewers and listeners? So I want to thank you so much for this great opportunity to speak with you today. And I want to thank you all for listening about the legacy of the Moors and sharing about the Harriette T and Harry V. Moore Memorial Park and Museum. We're located at 2180 Freedom Avenue, the beautiful city of Mims, Florida, 32754. But our telephone number is 321-264-6595. And our hours are Monday through Friday presently at 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Please call us for a scheduled personalized tour.
And we thank you again. Because remember, freedom never dies.
Amen. Thank you for that,
You're
Sonya.
welcome.
Now, I want to make sure that we've got your website correct. It is harrietmore.org, correct?
Okay, it's not the word the is not in there. It's just harrietmore.org.
Excellent.
Yes.
See, that's why I asked. I want to make sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.